there's a lot of certain types of rigs. The one that I'm using for demo doesn't have it exposed, but this unit in here, certain rigs, vectors are popular for it, Aerodynes are popular for it. You can see a portion of this cable under the flap of the reserve flap. So you do want to kind of keep an eye on it. I've seen damage in these units in here where the cable goes into the actual unit. I've seen them peeling out. I've seen them kind of tearing away a little bit. So keep an eye in there. If you start seeing that the protective covers are starting to get damaged or worn, maybe talk to your rigger, or even maybe if it's that bad, we can contact Vigil and get it sorted out. But that's a little bit of a self-maintenance thing, all right? Keep an eye on your AED and what it's doing if you can see it, so. Dun, dun, dun. The closing loops. Oh yeah, you guys can change those. We make them here in the loft. We give them away. If you need one, ask for one. We'll give you one. I actually heard a really new, interesting, and I think we're going to institute it policy here. If you bring us a worn out closing loop like this that's not broken, we'll give you a new one. And if you bring us a broken closing loop that should have been replaced and you broke it, you have to buy it. I'm debating it. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but it's a pretty good idea. But yeah, ultimately we give these away. They take us a little bit of time and pennies to make. Really, they're worth it to keep you guys safe. So if you need one, ask for one. We'll give you one. Your closing loop is at the bottom, in the bottom tray. You're allowed to play with that one. You're not allowed to play with your reserve one unless you're a rigger, but it's down in here in the back and the bottom. Some of them are super duper tight in there and they're really hard to get into. Like this one is just, it's in there. If you want, you can pop in and ask some of the riggers. They usually have a handful of tools. And in fact, because I know mine well enough and I just tried, I'm going to get one of those lovely little tools. We call them hemostats, and it allows us to reach into little places and find things that we can find. So that's a brand new one. I just put it in so we can see what the differences are here. I think most of you guys know what these look like. You can see one's quite fuzzed out. One's looking pretty nice. There is a little metal washer. Don't forget it. It's important. Alrighty. As well, there's a series of knots behind there. A single overhand knot will probably hold for quite a while. I've also seen them slip and let go. So I personally like to tie a double overhand and then a locking knot just to be sure. I don't want that falling out by accident and slipping off on me. Wouldn't be a fun day. So if you need to put one in, you can basically slide it into your container here. And hopefully it kind of lines up. If not, you can sometimes put a bend in them and get them to poke up through. Get it through, make sure your washer's still there. Tuck as much of it back in as you can. Give a tug, make sure it's secure. And while you're doing that, just have a look at everything in there, right? Have a look at the grommet, make sure there's no cuts or nicks or anything. Take a look at the stitching. It's not about to tear out. If your anchor for your closing loop's like half torn off, you maybe should come and see us and we'll get that fixed up for you. Yeah, this is a reserve one here, just so you guys can kind of see what's going on with that. You're not allowed to change them, but they're significantly smaller than your larger main closing loop. But they don't get the use after use after use on those. So that's why we can get away with some smaller stuff in the reserve tray. We're down in the main area. So let's talk about some BOC pockets. I got a nice big one here that, well, it's really beat up. So we can see from this one that the mouth is really loose. It's we want the mouth of the BOC to be nice and snug. All right, hold your pilot chute in, especially if you're doing some vertical stuff. Well, really any of it, but vertical, that's going to be nice and important for you. Another thing to watch that you can kind of take care of yourself is make sure that you don't have any holes in your BOC. If you start seeing stuff like this, where it's coming apart, you can see through it. All right, you can see at one point we kind of put a little bit of a patch in that on our own. But yeah, that's some pretty excessive wear. So you can monitor that on your own. Just check that. Watch your BOC, no cuts or tears or anything like that. Pilot chute stuff. There's some stuff that you can do to your pilot chute that will help prolong the life. Keep it going a little bit longer. One of the things you'll notice with this one is, well, we got quite a bit wrong with this one. You can see we're getting some pretty heavy damage in the collapsing line. All right. So that's something that we're going to want to replace pretty soon. Something that you can pay attention, you can see up here as well, is this is where normally it would be anchored into the deployment bag. Your deployment bag would sit right at this section. You can see that the deployment bag has worn a hole into the confluence wrap on the bridle, and then it's actually chewed through some of the anchor points. It's just on its last legs here. So have a look inside. All right, it'll save you a ton of money if you don't have to replace your pilot chute because it's gone missing. Then there's also the length. This one here, it's kind of hard to see if I can get it to cock again. So if we look just down in here, we can see where our kill line comes out of the bridle itself and attaches to the apex of the pilot chute. And when I actually cock that, if I can get my foot on it on the other end, see how it's pulling it right inside there. The kill line is completely disappeared down inside the bridle, and it's pulling the anchor point down in with it. All right. So what that should be telling you is that your kill line is too short. We need to adjust it, and that's some of them are adjustable. We can give it some length again. More often than not, we end up just putting a new kill line in there just because of the wear and the tear on them. It's just easier just to replace it at this point and put a fresh one in. So yeah, have a look at your pilot chute for, you know, major rips and tears, stuff like that. This is something that we call ripstop tape. Okay, it used to be extremely common to see around drop zones. It used to work pretty good on F-111 canopies, a different type of material. It really doesn't like sticking to the zero porosity materials that we're using nowadays, so it's kind of gone by the wayside. But it used to be a fairly popular field Band-Aid patch for keeping your canopy going if you were away for the weekend, or you know, you wanted to keep jumping but you got a little tear somewhere. You could stick a patch of this stuff on and then hand it off to your rigger at the end of the weekend, and they'd get it all fixed up for you during the week. So yeah. Some other stuff that you can really help monitor, and this one you can definitely be fixing yourself, is all this twisting up in here. So you may not notice it so much when you're packing because it's inside the D bag. And then you go and you cram a canopy in there on top of it. But anyways, what ends up happening is when you deploy, if I can get enough of it to come out, you can see how twisted up and knotted that is. And if we were all here and sitting around, and as you can see, as I relax it, it's trying to twist itself around the kill line again. But you'd see all the little line burns and everything like that. I don't know if it's picking up as well. You can kind of see some of them in the light as I move it. But there's all these little scratches and scars on the material. And that's from that being, I'm going the wrong way here. No, it's going the right way. From being repeatedly used like that. So there's a whole bunch of them. Okay. So something that you can do when it's attached to your canopy, it's a little more difficult to handle, but basically you just end up passing your pilot chute through it again and again and again and again and again until it's untangled. If it was this severe, I may think about taking it right off my pilot chute. But yeah, you can just work those out. It's literally just twist it up, and it's not uncommon to see. It happens quite a bit. They just twist up. And give you something to do on in between loads. You can see we still got another bit of a twist in there. You just work it out. Voila. And that's what we're looking for on this. All right. What this line, this is our kill line, and this keeps our pilot chute attached to the bag or the top skin of our canopy. That takes a brunt of the load when it's fully deployed. If your kill line breaks, which usually happens before the webbing is going to keep hold of your pilot chute. But if the webbing breaks and your kill line's worn out and ratty like that other one, it may not hang on, and you're going to have to buy yourself a new pilot chute. And they're not cheap anymore these days. They're not something that you're. I mean, it's jump bucks, right? Do cleaning of your container. There's some cleaning that you can do. Yeah, leg straps are a popular one to get dirty. Something you can use a brush, brush them off. You can use water. I wouldn't use any detergents or anything like that. Something that that we use a lot here in the loft is a vacuum. We use a vacuum with the brush attachment that we make sure that the dust comes out, and a light bristle, nothing too aggressive, nothing too hard. The lighter the better, and just enough to agitate the dirt off of it. You can use water, a rag, and just kind of wipe it, loosen up some of the dirt, let it dry. And don't be dunking your gear trying to wash it. Remember, there's stuff in here. Just a reminder, if you're going to use a vacuum to suck any dust or dirt out of your equipment, power your AAD off before you do it. If you go, and most AADs are sitting at the very bottom of the main reserve tray, if you go exposing that to that vacuum, you may accidentally fire your AAD. But yeah, brush them off, wipe them off. Vacuuming them out works really, really well for dust. If you land in the mud, your best bet, honestly, is let the mud dry and then take it off with a brush. Don't try and brush it when it's still wet. It just kind of smears it and rubs it in a little bit more. So you actually get to get lazy when it comes to cleaning your gear. So some other things that you can clean up are your altimeters. So digitals, there's not a whole lot that we can do with them. You can wipe them off. Most people understand that they pop right out of the pocket. So you can slide it out, and then if you land in the mud, it takes a bit to get them out, but then you just pop them out. You can wipe it down. You just want to make sure that this little hole here is clear, and there was one, there we go. You want to make sure that you're cleaning that off. That's the little port where the air comes through to measure your barometric pressure so that it knows how high you are. These, you can just stick them in the washing machine. I do it all the time. They get kind of stinky after a while if you don't wash them. And then if you're jumping the old analog classic type, you can wipe these off as well. On the back, you'll see 4 screws here. You pop those off, and that'll allow you to take the wristband off. You can throw that in the wash as well. And then if I remember correctly, there's 4 more screws under there. And when you start taking those apart, now you're starting to get into the itty bitty pieces of the unit. But it does give you access to this wheel, and you can get dirt out from in behind that wheel if you do get a pile of mud in there. All right. If you've never done it, pop in and see us and ask for some help, and we get you rolling. But you know, if you're not good at taking stuff apart, maybe it's not the best thing for you to be taken apart. So one other thing with altimeters is as long as you're within there we go 300 feet of other altimeters, the average of the other altimeters in the aircraft, it's considered an acceptable difference. So, and then helmet stuff, you want to pay attention to what you're wearing on your head. Often people forget to look at their clips and stuff, so have a look at those. They come apart fine and they click up fine, but they're always under your chin, and a lot of times you may miss this great big crack that's in this one, and it only really becomes evident when we unclip the helmet or we flex that. I mean, helmets aren't cheap anymore. I'd hate to see one go flying off my head over a little plastic clip, and I'm sure everybody else would too. I think I've lost 3 helmets jumping so far. Fun fact. Yeah, and then with the G3s, the Cookie products, they've got these little rubber silicone bands in there. Have a look at those every now and again. If your visor doesn't want to stay down, you're going to be looking at replacing these guys in here. It's fun. Have fun with that one. But that's something you can totally do on your own. Yeah. Main canopy stuff. The old green machine hanging up in the background here. So let's see if we can't. One of the biggest things a lot of people like to skip over, and it's a really good thing to do every now and again, is check your brake lines. It's kind of hard to see. You can see a little bit of it. It looks like it's doing a magic show and a disappearing act up here. It's untwisting your brake lines. So the easiest way to do it is to start up here at the tail, at the canopy, and sort your upper branches out, get them all lined up. And then I'd use 2 hands, I always do, and slide one hand down, the other hand down. That way, if it gets away on one, you don't have to start at the very beginning again. And you can see it really starting to build up down here. All right. So there we have all the twists in that line. That's going to help wear it out prematurely. It's going to help shorten the life of it, and it's actually going to help shorten it a little bit. So once you get them down to this point, pull your toggle, get all those twists down below that ring, and then just, you can either spin them out. If you just let it hang, they usually untwist, and then just let it slide back up. These are old risers. You'll notice they have Velcro on them anymore, and the Velcro is very not grippy anymore, so it doesn't really take a hold. This one also has an older style of toggle pocket at the top, where it's just a piece of elastic. These used to get stretched out all the time and toggles would just fall out. You'll also notice that it's got this older style. Some of you will be familiar with these. Some of them you'll be like, oh my God, I've never seen such chaotic messes before. But that's where we used to store the excesses, a little Velcro pouch as well. So yeah, not too far back. Brake lines generally take the brunt of the wear in your equipment because you're constantly pulling up and down and spiraling and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So keep an eye on them. These ones aren't too bad. They've been changed repeatedly over the years. Have a look at your lines. You want to watch down here where they go around the link. All right, have a look at the soft link itself, check your risers at the top. I mean, there's all this other stuff that you can do, but we're talking about stuff that you can fix yourself. You can check your line trim. Is something that you can do. I have a tape measure here somewhere. Oh, so the easiest way to do that is get yourself a little tape measure and then go to your manufacturer's websites, figure out who made your canopy, figure out what your canopy is, and then go to their website and you'll find in there somewhere they'll have what they call a line trim chart. And if you go dig it up, and if you need some help reading it because it's just column after column of numbers, ask us and we'll be able to kind of decode it a bit for you. But then you basically take your measuring tape and they'll tell you where to measure from. Most of them tell you to measure from the base of the line set. And you basically just run it all the way up and it lets go. Normally we cheat and we clamp them here. Put a clamp on it. And then you just run it all the way up until you get to the other side. You pull it tight and then you read the number. It's pretty straightforward. The specifics of it, some of the manufacturers even call for and suggest that you put it under certain pounds of pressure for certain line types and this, that, and the other thing to gain an accurate measurement of what it is. But for a used line set that you've already been jumping, chances are it's not going to be on the money anyways. So yeah, close enough. Getting it to which is the common, the 30-pound pole. Not that important. If you can just get some weight on it and get it nice and straight, it'll give you a good idea for the numbers. So other than that, yeah, lines, keep an eye on the brake lines. The lower portion, they take the brunt of it. The centers, they take a bit, but not as much. So, but you're going to notice shrinkage in the brakes is the most. Some of these you can adjust on your own. I wouldn't suggest doing it unless you really know what you're doing. That'd be for the more experienced skydiver to adjust their own brake lines, but it can be done. Some of them you actually need certain tools to be able to go in there and actually adjust it properly. So some other stuff. What else can? Back in the day, it used to be common. This is Spectra that when brake lines started wearing out, we used to take beeswax and basically rub it up and down and add some life to it. It reduces the friction on it, but we tend not to anymore with the line types that we're using. It's not as popular now. So the last thing that you can do to help maintain your gear, well, not the last thing, there's all kinds of things, but just one other thing that you can kind of do to help maintain your equipment, your canopy, is watch for little holes. All right. So some of the stuff we've got here, hey, let's see if we can look down at this here. So the general rule of thumb is about 4 squares. It's kind of, you can kind of see it. There's a bit of a pinprick in that. It's there's a little hole there. It looks better on my end, to be honest. But yeah, anything under 4 squares, you don't really need to stress over very much. But when you start getting into things like this that are quite obvious, and you know, here I can get my pinky finger through it, that definitely needs to get fixed up and serviced, right? So, but if you find little pinpricks, anything under 4 squares, keep an eye on it for yourself. In fact, one of the things that often you'll see us do is we'll take a pen and you know, we'll just highlight the 4 squares around the area that, so I missed a little bit. There we go. And we'll track it that way. If it starts traveling outside that mark on the, there it is, then we'll bring it in and we'll get it fixed up and sorted out. But yeah, if it stays within that, you're fine. You can keep going. That's kind of what I had. Anybody got any questions or anything? I know everyone had their chit chat session already, so.
Yeah, Jared, if you don't mind, I had a couple things that I could say. Just about the optional Cypress services. Yeah, it's really cool that Cypress is letting people decide whether or not they want to send in their unit for a service because they have such a great battery life now. However, there is a note to that. It says that if you do decide to skip one of your services, they are no longer liable for anything that happens to that unit.
Or I believe that.
Or that happens with that unit.
So the whole concept and the reason that Cypress started skipping their services is it works really well for us in North America. In fact, the service center for the US and Canada is like 6 hours away kind of thing. It's just over in Ohio, I believe, Lebanon, Ohio. So it's really not that far in comparison. We don't have far to send them. It's super easy for us. We have reliable shipping. We have good borders, good customs. The reason they change it is there's a lot of countries out there and a lot of places in examples, South America and some of the other countries that aren't so well off and don't have such nice borders and customs rules and stuff. These guys are sending their units out for the maintenance. And when they're coming back, their governments or their postal services or whatever it is that they're dealing with there are charging them like $1,500, $2,000 per unit, like to get their packages back in customs fees. So for them, it's really not worth it. They might as well just buy a new AED at that point. So that's where that's coming from in that sense, is that's why they shifted to that optional thing. So be a little more accommodating.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like from a legal standpoint, if anything does go wrong with the unit and you skipped your 4-year and you're at like 8-year, or sorry, you're at like year number 6 and you didn't do the 4-year, they won't cover the repair or anything because you skipped that service.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they also won't cover any legal liability either. So it's just a note that people should understand that, yes, it's cool that you can skip your service if you don't have to change your battery yet, but it might cost you more later if you have to do some unexpected, maintenance to it.
Yeah.
So it's always better to just simply send it in if you have that option.
I suggest send it in anyways. Do the maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's about the wrist mounted Vizos.
Yeah.
And any of your like wrist mounted altimeters with the sweatband type band. What people should know about those is that those units, the altimeters themselves are water resistant to a degree. But if you're in a really humid location, or if you're just the kind of person that sweats a lot, that wristband is going to collect your sweat throughout the day. And if you're wearing it all day long and sweating all day long, it will seep through the bottom of the wristband. And if it gets wet enough, it will wet the underside of your altimeter, possibly ruining the water resistant damper.
Yeah, the salt in your sweat's not good for it either.
Yeah. So anyways, just those two kind of things that people, should kind of understand. One was the legal thing about the Cypress, and the other one was just, don't be a sweaty pig in your wristband, or dry it off at the end of every day if you're a sweaty kind of person or in a really humid area, That's it.
Fantastic, man. Thank you. Anybody else got anything? That's it. You guys are so quiet. Yeah, that's about all I really got for you on this one. It was designed to be short, sweet, just kind of touch on the regular basis of things, not get in. It's Zoom, and as you can see, we had a technical issue today. But it'll be a lot more enjoyable when we're back in person and we can actually get in and get our hands on all this equipment and, you know, tear it apart right before your very eyes kind of thing. So
I have a question.
yeah,
Is this goatee staying for the season?
no. Once we start jumping, it's going to be so itchy in my helmet. I won't be able to stand it. So
Damn.
Yeah, no, listen, I understand that we had a little bit of fun with the technical issue there at the beginning, but that was actually a really good way to show what you were doing and to give a demonstration, considering we're not able to be there in person. Even if we were in person, some people might not have gotten such a close-up look at
Yeah.
what you were displaying anyways. It was very, I liked it. It was very good.
how did for those who were on last week's GoPro a big improvement over, because I mean last time we ran the video over my phone, so yeah, chime in, let us know.
Aside from the intermittent service, it was better video quality.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so we should stick with this.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Well, thank
I've
you,
got
everybody. Oh, go
I
ahead.
got one quick thing to throw in, J-Rod, and only because it's seems to be one of the common questions that goes around and the common arguments between everybody, especially some of the newer jumpers, is the difference between routing a bridle through the top or the bottom and which manufacturers require or suggest in their packing instructions on which way to do it. It's something that doesn't seem to really be taught very frequently, and it seems to be a very common question and argument between a lot of the novices.
Okay, let me get that bridle that I love. It's no longer attached. One of these. So I had the issue that stemmed part of this whole thing between the bridles routing. It's one of these bridles. It was attached to the rest of the pilot chute, but I took it apart. I think it might be this one because I took this one apart. So anyways, what can happen is the pin can go through the bridle itself, and it doesn't appear to be either of these. So as it's sitting in your container, I don't know if we can see so well. Let me tip this down here. You don't have to look at me while I do this. Can you
You need a selfie stick there, J-Rod.
yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in here really without a whole lot of effort, which is amazing that it does. God, I wish I knew who that one was. It's not attached to it anymore. No, this one might be a little easier. So anyways, what had happened is they routed things in a manner that came over the flap and they skipped the whole pin perpendicular to the bridle rule, where you would end up with a configuration similar to this. All right. What they were doing is they were tucking the pin up under the bridle to kind of hide the pin and make it look a little more sleek and more professional and profile kind of thing. And what ends up happening is that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in there. I don't think I will. I don't know how I did it before, but your pin tip can actually pierce through the bridle and get jammed. And once it jams, it doesn't want to let go anymore. And I actually had that happen to me. And I basically went out and it turned into a pilot shoot and tow. Immediately around the same time that a handful of other people in the industry had the same thing happen to them. So I believe UPT was the first one to kind of come up with the idea. They started doing it where they had the pin right out from the bottom, or the bridle right out from the bottom up to the pin and then back in under the bottom. So that, which is an extremely common way of doing it anymore, so that they basically keep the tip of the pin completely away from the bridle itself, so that we're not going to end up in a situation where it even gets an opportunity to get close to the bridle so that it can't pierce the bridle. Generally, I think there's a couple rigs out there. Some of the older Javelins, it doesn't work as well with, just the way that they're set up and the way they pack and the way they close. The bridle pretty much needs to route off of the top, around and into the bottom, like that configuration that I showed you. A lot of the manufacturers now and a lot of the rig designs now will take the pin routed up from the bottom to the pin back to the bottom. Wings, because Brandon, I know you jump wings. Wings has a little bit of excess bridle, or a little piece that kind of pokes up where this piece here that's
The little
is
tab
there.
that's
Yeah.
on the bridle is off the side instead of the
It's- it's-
center.
Yeah, so when you try and do it with those, you end up with some of your bridle or your pin or something usually hanging outside of that main cover flap. So with the wings models, it's not really ideal to do because of that bridle exposure. But if you had
Yeah,
a bridle like
I've-
this that was in line, then yeah, it would totally work fine and be acceptable. So.
I mean, my biggest thing in the question, or even maybe something that could just be done to help some of the novices, is throw a few pictures up of the way that it should be done and the manufacturers in which it differs. Just because there's that question with novices, and it seems to be the common argument.
So basically, for the novices, they're all, as long as they're jumping the rental gear, it's all Icons. Icon Aerodyne is supports from the bottom to pin back to the bottom, the new version. Outside of that, when you get your own equipment, we'd have to look it up and see which each one suggests, which basically digs into the manuals kind of thing.
Well, I think that's where the big question is, because a lot of these
Yeah.
novices are buying pretty old, sometimes crappy rigs that, not a lot of people necessarily have seen all the time. And
Yeah.
then it's one person says up, one person says down, and it's just clarification so that we're all a little bit more knowledgeable, really.
So in default, always pack by the manual's instructions, basically.
Yeah.
When in doubt, follow the manual. So which ones are saying which and which ones are saying, well, not. I mean, we can go through the popular ones and have a look and see kind of the popular manufacturers and kind of have a look and see who's saying what for and roughly when they switched over. So.
One last thing while we're on bridle, I don't know if you touched on it, but it was an issue that I've had once, is double checking the hard link or soft link that holds the bridle into the D-bag.
I didn't have one set up. You can check them. I touched on the fact that you need to check the supporting material around it, but yeah, check the actual link as well.
Well, I had that issue where my hard link actually fell out on the packing mat. I noticed while I was packing, Jim replaced it with a soft link, which then pulled right through, and I had pilot chute in tow, which eventually ended up a bag of shit above my head that ended up decent, but a little interesting.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
So that hard link can come loose over time, and it's just one extra thing that everybody should keep in mind to have a look at that attachment point as well, not just the material and the grommet.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if I have any done. Oh, I got one right here. I just tear into this guy.
Brandon, if you buy something that's not a wings, you'll get into these bridles that don't have to have the hard link or the soft link, and it's just the actual bridle that attaches right to the canopy.
Listen, by the time this lockdown's over, my Micron will be here. I'm keeping the wings though, so.
Well, why the fuck would you do that?
Now, this one isn't the one with one in it. So what he's talking about here is on the opposite side of, so this is the side that we normally see and we're packed up and closed up. On the opposite side in here as well, this one just happens to have a really heavy duty confluence wrap in it, which means multiple wraps of material in and around that. All right. We also have a couple tabs. What used to be the extreme norm is we pass a hard link in and amongst these tabs, and it would basically keep they pass down through the top, and it would keep the D-bag from sliding down and choking on your canopy, or sliding up and choking at your pilot chute and just doing excess damage. If you look at some of the accuracy jumper guys, what they actually do is they use an oversized grommet here, and they want it to slide up. They have it slide up their bridle and choke. Their D-bag will flip inside out, and it'll slide up all the way up and up and up and up, and somewhere in here there's a pilot chute, and then it ends up choking out their pilot chute and kind of collapses it in a sense. Old school technology ways, I guess. But yeah, they're talking about this little link on the inside. Do I have any hard links? I have one right over here. And I don't even need a wrench. So what he's talking about is this little area in here. It would just pass through there. And then the fun part of trying to get it all the way through. This one won't actually fit, but that's what he's talking about in there. And that would attach on that way. What's extremely common now is because we're moving more and more away from metal, especially around the top skin of the canopy, we're starting to replace these with soft links. Basically, any volume of material up here will aid in it not passing through that grommet. The issue that he had was basically the grommet size and the volume of material that was on the lower part of his bridle. Yeah.
Have a look at my video. So what actually happened on mine is that's the attachment point on the inside of the bag, and it came loose, and Jim replaced it with the soft link, which then caused the entire end of the bridle to pop through, which meant my my kill line got pulled immediately.
Yeah.
So I just had pilot chute in tow because this little quick link decided it was going to come loose. So at least everybody can see the exact configuration that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you do use the wrong size grommet with the improper hardware and setup, it will pull through. And that's how it did. Basically, that soft link wasn't rigid enough to hold back against the grommet size that you had, and it just pulled through. So.
Yep, lessons learned, definitely.
Yeah, yep.
Especially because it was already a hop and pop jump.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Now, were you saying that it pulled through after it was replaced with a soft link? Or was it still with a hard
Yeah.
link?
No,
Okay.
we couldn't find the hard link, and Jim was the rigger in the loft at the time, and he said it was acceptable and replaced it with a soft link.
Right. The thing about the soft links, so obviously you need to have enough meat in there so that it keeps it from pulling through. If you're just using a regular main soft link, they do have a tendency to pull through because they're not very thick. Yeah, what
Yeah,
you
no,
can do, what you
It was
can
a
do,
standard small soft link. Like it
that's right. Well,
it
what you
wasn't big
can't,
enough.
well, what you can do is you can use a reserve soft link, and they're thicker, and that will probably keep it from happening because the reserve soft links are a lot fatter. They're like almost twice the thickness,
Okay,
and they
that's
are
something.
also,
Yeah, that's something good to keep in mind. Thank you.
yeah.
Or just don't buy a wings.
Or just don't let Jim touch your shit.
Anybody got anything else? Thanks for those, Brandon.
No problem at all,
Oh.
J-Rod. Thanks a lot for all the information and keeping us kind of sane during these rough times.
Hey, now that we're talking about the soft links, one of the maintenance things that you want to check on your main risers is the soft links if you are using soft links, because people tend to figure that they can buy a set of soft links and use them the way that they use the hard links, which is you can replace your lines or change out canopies and keep the same soft link. But the soft link will wear the same as your lines do. So it's good to change out your soft links at least at every new line set, but you got to keep an eye on those as well because they are soft and they will wear.
Yeah.
You don't want to just keep using them forever because they'll eventually just snap on you.
Yep.
Or they'll eat away at your line attachment or eat away at your riser as well.
I agree with all.
Hey, Jared, we want to say thanks for the show and have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.
All right, see ya.
Thank you, Jared. You're the best.
Thanks, J-Rod.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, J-Rod.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
thanks for coming in, everybody. We'll see you again.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Jared.
I'm just gonna leave it open for a bit here in case people